Did you know that 35% of adults in the United States are vitamin D deficient? That's why I'm wearing sunglasses, right? We're going to be talking about the sunshine vitamin, vitamin D, and it really can impact your physical and mental health. And today I'm here with your host, Dr. Jill Wade, and this is the Beyond Face Value Show. My name is Laura Lewis Edwards, and I am her co-host and sidekick and all-around passionate person about healthy living. And welcome to the show.
Laura, you look fabulous with your glasses on.
Thank you. Thank you. I can't see anything on the inside. I can't see a thing, so I'm going to have to switch it now, but thank you very much.
Well, the point is so well made with the glasses, because the best source of getting enough vitamin D is the sun. It has its pros, it has its cons, but when it comes down to vitamin D, that's your best source, isn't it?
Exactly. And it's still, remember back in the day when then there was a whole advertising campaign around orange juice, and they were referring to orange juice and vitamin C as a sunshine vitamin. Do people still think of that?
Yes.
Because if you're an older demographic and you remember those commercials, and you got to go, no, we are not talking about that. Yeah, vitamin C and oranges comes from oranges and lots of other food sources, but vitamin D is and I know Dr. Jill is going to dive into this about what type is really good for you and all that. But when you expose your skin to the sun in a safe fashion, this is going to be important. Your body manufactures a form of vitamin D, which is a precursor to hormones, and it's a type of hormone actually, and it has such a huge impact upon many of our systems in our body. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, and how you can safely get enough vitamin D, and what's enough, what's too much. And yes, there is such a thing as too much. But yeah, so let's go ahead and talk about one of my favorite topics.
And when you're talking about going out into the sun, I believe, if I misspeak, correct me if I'm wrong, but you need to get out to the sun and actually have some skin exposure. So it's not just your face. It's not just being in presence of it. It's actually to allow enough surface area of your skin to actually see the sun. And I believe they say if it's at least your arms being exposed for 15 to 20 minutes, if I remember correctly.
Exactly. The rules really are, you want to go during less peak hours. You don't want to be out in the sun, especially in the summer, between like 10, and 4 or 5, and, in sunshine states for sure. But if you can get out there in the morning and you roll up your sleeves, and if you've got your pajama bottoms on, roll them up, sit out there. I actually, I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico at a very high altitude, and the solar here is really strong. And even in the morning, it could be pretty intense. But if I go out and walk the new puppy, or out in my backyard in my robe and my pajamas, if I sit down, and I'm going to sit and I'm going to go ahead and expose my arms, I'm going to expose my legs and get the best juice from the sun there is to make sure I can manufacture that vitamin D, but I'm not going to be so exposed that I'm going to, cause those precancerous things that come along with overexposure to the sun.
Absolutely. We, when I was growing up, finally learned that, hey, just worshiping the sun was not so great for our skin. And that's when really all of the SPFs kind of came out, and everything had SPF, and you're going to slather on the SPF all day long. You're going to slather on the zinc oxide so you didn't get the freckles and all those kinds of things. I'm sure you remember all of that, and even doing it to our kids, right? So there's been a ton of conversation about what's too much SPF, and, is SPF part of the reason that this whole country is so deficient in vitamin D? I'm not going to say yes or no to that. I'm going to say it's worthy of a lot of discussion, and continues to be worthy of a lot of discussion. But it's also about foods, and the foods that we eat, and how can we get natural sources other than the sun of vitamin D. And a lot of people think that all foods have vitamin D in it, which is not true. Most foods that we eat have to be fortified with vitamin D, and then we consume them. So a lot of the milks and, like you said, even some of the orange juices and our cereals and milk. Did I say milk? Anyway,
Milk,
you know what I'm talking about. There's a lot
yeah.
of sources of it, but it is fortified with it.
Right. Yeah, but you can also find vitamin D naturally in some, fatty fish. Salmon is a great
Exactly.
source of vitamin D. Um, you know, uh, Also supplementing with vitamin D is something that has been encouraged for quite some time, especially if you're not outside very much. If you live in an area or region of the world that doesn't get as much sunshine, or if you're spending a lot of time indoors in an environment where they are not exposing you to the full spectrum rays of the sun, which you can be in a building and you can have full spectrum bulbs installed, kind of like human grow lights, if you will. Like right? You can,
Right.
if you're going to grow plants, you're going to put these plant lights. Well, there are full spectrum bulbs. It's important to have all of the rays of the sun in order to really help our body continue to manufacture the positive, lovely hormones, including vitamin D. But yeah, you have to be conscious of it, especially if you're living in a dark area. And it was determined, and I know that the scientific jury is still somewhat out on this, but there were a lot of scientists that believe that when COVID came around and the populations in the cities that were mostly impacted were people that had lower vitamin D levels. It was either in winter or it was elderly people who weren't out in the sun as much as they should be. And so the lower levels of vitamin D in our bodies can lower our immune system. Our resistance goes down. And that's why vitamin D is a very important nutrient that we must get. Naturally is preferred, but if you have to supplement, then you must supplement carefully. And sometimes you go to the doctor and you have your vitamin D checked with your blood work and you're really low. And they might tell you to take this one really potent pill every single day for a while to build up your vitamin D, because it's a fat soluble vitamin. It would be stored in your body. It's not like vitamin C, which can be burned up by smoking a cigarette, if you will.
Right.
So it's something that you can build up, and building up naturally would be good. But again, you can take a supplement.
So good. You hit on so many good points right there that I'm not going to let you just go over that without really honing in on a few of those points, because you made so many good points right there. I'm going to first talk about your COVID statement. Very true. Science really showed that people who are low in vitamin D were much more susceptible to actually catching the virus itself. And if you caught it and were low in vitamin D, that you had worse symptoms, more intense I can't speak today, symptoms, and had it longer, had more tendency to have long COVID symptoms afterwards. And so without a shadow of a doubt, the statements that have been coming out, even now, because yes, we're not maybe in that original COVID phase, but COVID's going nowhere, everybody. It's still here. It's still here to stay. It's the new flu season. And I can tell you right now, having opened up the practice again, after the summertime, we are seeing a resurgence of COVID. The kids are going back to school. They've been on vacation, and everybody that was traveling around now passed it all back and forth again. So we're going to have this resurgence. And my biggest piece of advice to you is to really think about supplementation of vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, and magnesium. It has been proven over and over again that when you supplement on those key things, that your resistance or likelihood of catching things, or at least having less symptoms and things like that, is huge. So that's one of the main topics why I love talking about vitamin D right now, because it's so important for your immunity. You said it, hands down, super important for your immunity. But do not think that is the only reason that you should be taking vitamin D. I mean, when I say that vitamin D affects nearly every system in your body. I am not kidding. Dr. Google it. You don't have to take my word for it. Dr. Google what vitamin D actually has to do with, and there's not a system that goes on in our body physiologically that doesn't have something to do with vitamin D. That's how important it is. Because when you have a deficiency in it, it's not just one system that's being affected. It's so many of them. So many of them.
Right. And like including you as a dentist with oral health, for example, because of the correlation of
so let's
how
talk about that.
The systemic connection of your oral health and your heart, and even having to do with diabetes and things like that.
Everything.
If you even just take that, just vitamin D itself, like you said,
yes,
and how is that going to impact your oral health? How is that going to impact all the other systems?
Absolutely,
it's a really important thing to remember.
Is. And when we choose our topics here on the Beyond Face Value show, that's what I'm always thinking about. It's like, there's a million different things we could be talking about. We could be talking about all of the latest and greatest things that are trending, and that's great, and we will sometimes. But where it really comes down to is I want to be clear, like very clear to you, like what are the top 10 to 20 things that you should really be thinking about to help your overall health and wellness. Not 1,000, not the latest trends, not the latest shots and figures that you can have to have weight loss. Okay. But what are the true things that are really important to you that's going to, supplement you for overall health and well-being for the long term? And vitamin D is one of my top 10 list of things to consider. Supplementation is very important. And as you said, not every vitamin D is held at the same standard. I definitely make sure that people understand that D3, when you're purchasing it, you want to purchase D3, not D2. D2 is a plant-based. D3 is more of an animal-human type of base. And so you're going to get it into your system. It's going to get utilized in your system much better. And one of the things as a dentist that is so important for us is how incorporated it is, not just to your immune system, but to your bone. And as females, ladies, you need to hear this. If you start your younger adult life low in vitamin D and you let that go on for years and years and years, I guarantee you will be more likely to have osteopenia and then osteoporosis. It is so critical for bone health. And why do I like bone health? Because your teeth are going to come out if you do not have healthy bone around your teeth. That's what keeps them in, is healthy bone, healthy gums holding them in place. And so without vitamin D, you may think, well, I didn't think vitamin D had anything to do with bone health. That's calcium, isn't it? Shouldn't I just be supplementing calcium? I could tell you that you could supplement calcium and magnesium all day long, huge amounts of it if you wanted to. But if you're still low and deficient in vitamin D, you will still not make and grow healthy bone. Plain and simple. It only works when you have an optimal range of vitamin D.
Right. It works together. It's the perfect formula. If you don't have it, it's kind of like if you're baking a cake and if you don't have baking powder, or if you're going to do yeast or whatever, it's not going to leaven. It's not going to raise because it needs that crucial ingredient to create that chemical reaction. And so to build your bone, which again, I'll reiterate what Dr. Jill just said about what is holding your teeth in your jaw, that if you want to have that healthy smile for a long time and keep a lot of your teeth, original teeth in your body, that having healthy bones is so key. And, regarding that, talking about making sure you take that D3, whatever supplement it is, make sure it is that D3 form, or it's not going to be helpful. Absolutely. And also get foods, like we talked about foods just a bit ago. I have my little list I just pulled up, Dr. Jill, too, that, we talked about fortified dairy has vitamin D, like yogurt and cheese, fatty fish, like everybody's favorite sardines. Not really, but salmon. So do you like sardines? Okay. I wish I liked sardines because they are so good for you, like sardines and salmon and swordfish, herring. I actually knew a fellow from Holland that loved these things called roll mops, which are, basically like herring in a jar. And they
Oh,
eat these
yes.
quite
I've
a
seen
bit up,
that.
in Denmark and in Holland, in Netherlands and Sweden and those kind of places, which can get very dark, right? In the
Right.
winters up there. And so that vitamin D source is so important. They're getting it through their food. And then, of course, we hope they're outside. Before I know that we want to dive in a little bit more because you've got a fabulous graphic that you talk about and that shows the systems. Um, do you know, and I actually had this in one of my chapters in my book. I'm talking about vitamin D, but I was reminded when I was scanning it, talking about, well, how did vitamin D kind of come out? How they know that we really needed it? Because before then, I think a lot of us, our societies were outdoors quite a bit, and in the fields and that kind of thing. But with the Industrial Revolution that happened, they found that cities started to get smoggier, and that there was this affliction that started happening to children in factories, which they used to have children in the factories. And they showed that they started having these rickets or these bow legs. And so a Polish physician is one that sort of looked at this, and he decided that, gosh, it's because it's a lack of exposure to sunshine. And so what they found out too is that nutritionists of the 1920s were like, well, let's go ahead and start feeding the kids, exposing them to sunlight or sun lamps, but also giving them cod liver oil, which is really rich in vitamin D. And I was raised by a mother that would tell me stories that they were given vitamin D as kids. I didn't have that in my house. Did you?
No,
Dr.
I did
Jill?
not. But I remember
Okay.
my grandmother talking about it.
Yep. Right. So that came out of all that, the Industrial Revolution, where they figured out, oh gosh, smoggy, dark, skies, or working inside all the time, and we're not getting what we need. And that was causing the malformation of bones, because if you don't have your vitamin D, you're not going to be able to create those nice, strong bones, especially in a growing kid, right?
Absolutely. Growing kid and an aging adult. Because how many times have we all heard the story? They were doing great. Their health was, pretty good for their age until they fell and broke a hip or broke a bone. And then it was kind of the spiral effect down on their overall health. And so keeping strong, healthy bones to the point where you're not breaking them down the road is really smart. It's just a smart way of putting intention in your life to live a certain way now so that you can live a certain way 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and be that kind of grandparent or grandmother that you want to be. And supplementation is really key. Now, from a dental standpoint, because I've been in dentistry almost 30 years now. I know. Don't even go there. 30 years. I'm going to a reunion here pretty soon for 30 years out. And 10 or 15 years ago, I can tell you that the standard of care did not test vitamin D all the time. And then it became very gently obvious inside people's oral cavity that something was off. Something generalized was off in their mouth, okay? And it's super subtle. It's not like you guys probably couldn't just look in and see it. Doing what I've done for as long as I have, there's a difference between pink gums and pink red gums or light pink gums. So there's really subtle differences of the colors of pink that we can see inside the oral cavity. And when someone has a generalized low level or deficiency in vitamin D, their overall mouth, all of the gums, cheeks, inside the cheeks, next to the teeth, everywhere, it's a more pink red. Generalized, and you can see it. And when they begin to supplement and they get their levels up and they get more optimized, it goes into what I call the healthy pink color. And so it is very visible. And so what amount do we usually see people getting placed on? You talked about the kind of strong levels of vitamin D to try to, increase the deficiency. I'll hear anywhere from 5,000 IUs, which is called international units. That's how it's measured, to 10,000 sometimes. And sometimes that's once a week. Sometimes it's every day until you get that level up to a certain point. And then usually for maintenance, I hear about 2,000 IUs, international units a day, once you've gotten optimized of where you can stay. And the reason why you wouldn't necessarily want to stay on that 5,000 to 10,000 constantly without really checking from a testing standpoint is just like you were talking about a little while ago, Laura, is that there is a toxicity level you do not want to get to, because that is also unhealthy. Yes, the deficiency is unhealthy, but also there can be a toxic level to it as well. And you were sharing a story with me earlier about, I think it was your daughter.
Yes. Yeah. She lives in LA. She, she's very active out, walking, and it's very sunny there, quite a bit, walking her dog several times a day, around the lake nearby, and anything she's doing. She was saying, Mom, anything I'm doing something outside. And then she got her blood work done. She was also taking a D supplement, like she thought she should as a nutritionist daughter, taking a supplement with vitamin D, right? And the doctor found her levels were too high. And so that she's had to stop taking the vitamin D because, as I said earlier, remember, this is a fat soluble vitamin that is stored in your body. You can build it up, like Dr. Jill said, and sometimes it's a large amount that it needs to go, and all of a sudden you hit that magic number and your doctor says, okay, you're good. I do want to point out something that is something called biochemical individuality. Dr. Linus Pauling, who is a Nobel Prize winning physician, PhD, who studied vitamin C. And he is the one that really talked about this decades ago, about every single individual. We are biochemically unique. We're all different. It is not a cookie cutter approach. As Dr. Jill said, there is that average of 2,000 IUs a day is kind of where they shoot for. But it's really important for you to, when you get your annual blood work and your checkups, make sure they are checking your vitamin D and make sure you're within the zone that you need to be, and then address it accordingly, whether you want to go ahead and start doing the sunshine method if you can, or eat more vitamin D fortified foods or vitamin D rich foods like roll mops and salmon and herring and sardines and those kind of things. But, to find your own rhythm, find your own place, that level that is perfect for you. It's not going to be just like your best friend. It's not going to be. It could, maybe it's kind of like your sister or your brother or your parents, because you have similar genetics, but you have to always keep this in mind, especially when it comes to supplementation, which I'm a big fan of orthomolecular nutrition and making sure you get enough nutrients. But again, this is a very important topic because you can get too much, but that's rare, as Dr. Jill has mentioned too. Typically, you're deficient in it, and that deficiency, as she said, shows up in the mouth, shows up in the body, shows up heart, cardiovascular, even with diabetes, immune system, but that has to do with COVID. It's just a giant footprint that happens that's associated with vitamin D.
It is. And again, bone health, I think we have to consider that all the time. And like you said, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, you name it, it has something to do with it. That is why I list it as one of the critical things that you must pay attention to in your health. You must monitor it. You must demand, I hate to say it that strongly, but I really do mean it. You must demand it as being one of the standard of care blood tests that is drawn on your wellness visits each year, because you really need to monitor it, and it really needs to stay optimized all the time throughout your whole entire life.
And Dr. Jill, too, I just want to mention in this episode, if this is your first time listening, Dr. Jill has a general and cosmetic dentistry practice located in Frisco, Texas. But it's not just about the cosmetic aspect or just the healthy teeth. Dr. Jill is a wellness-oriented dental practice, so they look at all the systems, and they work with a variety of healthcare practitioners to make sure each patient is as healthy as possible. And that's one of the things I love about doing this show with Dr. Jill Wade on the Beyond Face Value podcast. That, by the way, I'll throw out there, you can see it on YouTube as well as your favorite podcast platform, is that each episode, as she said before, is so interestingly designed as she wants to dole out this information one bit at a time. So these one bits at a time, each episode is food for thought that's going to help improve your life. And that's what Dr. Jill Wade is all about, is helping you live that best life in every way.
That's right. It's about the legacy that you leave. And we want you to be able to do that with the best mindset, enjoying life, enjoying the people around you, and sharing little tidbits just like this, these life hacks. And, love it when you guys are patients at the office, because we get to share those things with you there at the office. But that's why we designed the podcast here, is so that we could reach more people outside of even seeing you at the office.
Yeah,
well,
beautiful.
Laura, thank you.
I've loved this.
Yes.
It's great as usual. I'm looking forward to the next round.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if you haven't checked your vitamin D levels, it sounds like that's the thing that you need to go back, get on your portal, go look at your last test, your standard of care testing, and look it up. Make sure you had one that was part of your testing the last time you were in at the doctor's office. And if not, the next time you go in, ask and request for that, and then get some counseling on it, get your supplementations. Even before you go, if you notice that it's a little too low, we've given you tons of tips with the sun and foods to eat that, can help reestablish your level of not being deficient. We want you to feel the best that you can with all aspects of your life, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for being here, Laura. And we hope that you have enjoyed this podcast episode and are wanting to share it with someone that you know, because you care about them and you love them, and you think that this information is valuable to not only you, but to your family and your friends.
So that was it for the Beyond Face Value Show with your host, Dr. Jill Wade, and myself, co-host and sidekick, Laura Lewis Edwards. We hope you enjoyed it. Please share this podcast with your friends and share the information, because who knows, you may change someone's life with just one little tidbit that we've shared with you. See you next time.
Also, to help us grow and expand our reach, be sure to like and subscribe to this show on YouTube or your favorite podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever you prefer. Just remember, it's time to live your legacy now. I'm Dr. Jill Wade, and this has been the Beyond Face Value Show. Until next time.